The topic, I'd like to introduce the topic and how we arrived at this topic. Here in the Potomac Temple, some time ago, about a month or so ago, there was a deity worship seminar, yes? Say yes. Yeah, yeah, okay. The deity worship seminar. The Sringa Kabacha came all the way from Australia, and they had the same cast of personalities, teachers, in central USA, in Naperville. It was planned well in advance, and it was well attended, at least in central USA. And the result was training and education. Result is more awareness, more clarity on, what the requirements are, at least, for deity worship. And then, in addition, the thought was, since that was planned well in advance, what about the other features of the 5 most important activities in devotional service, according to Rupa Goswami? Deity worship is one. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, chanting the holy name, serving devotees of the Lord, and residing in a sacred place, like Vrindavan, etc. Mathura Vast, it says in Sanskrit, living in a sacred holy dham. The 5 most potent activities. So the idea is make your home of the holy dham. And then the Vaishnava Etiquette was the next topic that we thought, because we're always having seminars on Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, it's devotional topics. So Vaishnava Etiquette was the topic. And there was other thoughts behind it. Here's some other thoughts behind it. I had just, during the Thanksgiving weekend, I had spent 14 classes discussing one topic, Madhurya Kandambani, which is a book by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, teaching 2 verses of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That's the 9 stages of bhakti. A whole book on 2 verses from his writings. And the study that I did, and in the presentation that went along with the study, was the Anartha Nivritti continuum goes right up to and touches the higher stage, Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. That is sadhana, there's still residual anarthas. There's in categories. And he outlines the categories and makes nice charts and everything. So in other words, the reality is we have a long way to go of removing unwanted things. And the way to remove unwanted things is by practice of bhajana kriya in association of devotees, sadhu sangha. So we're all less than perfect beings, no surprise. And we have a long way to go, no surprise. And one of the things that helps us get to where we want to go, aside from good sadhana, is training and education. What are the standards and principles to live by that are, there's a nice term in Madhurya Kandambani that says steadiness in those features, nishtha, those features that are supportive of bhakti. And that's Vaishnava etiquette, or sadachar, or good conduct. So to help our members go closer towards the goal, training, education, and Vaishnava etiquette. And then there's another factor, 2 more factors. One more factor is more and more people, new people are coming through the door. And the new people that are coming through the door, they have an expectation. Besides the deity worship should be, sadhu sangha should be. And supposing somebody's less than pure, most of us are less than pure, and they have some interaction with somebody less than pure, they observe our devotees interacting with other devotees in a manner that's less than pure. What's the impression? Hey, I thought this was going to be a place that's golden and it's tarnished, or it's less than perfect. There are examples that people continue to come because they find wholesome devotees, but there are people that go away because they don't find wholesomeness in our exchanges. They witness exchanges amongst devotees. It's not so becoming. It happens. And then the final is something that I have been saying for the past 6 months to a year. What's the Hare Krishna movement going to be like in 50 years from now? And it depends on the quality and character of the devotees. Of course, their devotion, but the qualities that they carry and how loyal they are to the tradition and applying the principles of the tradition, because things have a tendency to shift or change or become modified over time. It happens. I mean, it happens historically, and it's happened currently. What's the Hare Krishna movement going to be 50 years from now? Is there something we should be doing today to help ensure it's the same Hare Krishna movement 50 years from now than it is today, or at least could be today? That's training and education. So that's the thought process, little backdrop behind the topic. And so I'm speaking on the topic of Vaishnava Etiquette. This is part 2. And part 1 was teachings, just principles, not so much the application of principles, a little bit, but mainly it's going to show up in today's presentation. There's one example is from Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his writings on Chaitanya Shikshamrita. He gives a list of 8 categories of respect, because I decided I wanted to speak, as far as Vaishnava etiquette, respect. The first class is respect is where it all begins. Or say it the opposite. When there isn't respect, how are you going to have a relationship? Or how are you going to have etiquette? And then to whom do you respect, and how do you exhibit that respect? But Vaishnava etiquette starts there. That was the first class. So in Chaitanya Shikshamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, positive, negative. The ornament of Vaishnava conduct is, a Vaishnava behavior is proper etiquette. And not observing etiquette is a big fault, dosha. It's a blemish on that Vaishnava or Vaishnavism. So we don't want to be blemishes on Vaishnavism. Then he gives a list of 8. So in today's class, I'm taking from Gaura Lila examples of how respect is demonstrated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or his associates in Gaura Lila. The principle is in living color. And very beautiful pastimes, as those of you that are familiar with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Lila. It's going to be a very nice time together. And I'm so much enlivened by the topic. This is a little advertisement, I guess. One of Prabhupada's disciples, many of you may know him, Yogeshwara Prabhu. Yogeshwara Prabhu. Very nice devotee. Very nice devotee. He contacted me. He had just spent 7 years writing a book on Lord Chaitanya. And he's a very gifted writer. He's very good with words, and he's very intelligent, and he's very pleasant, and he's an elevated Vaishnava in many ways. So I invited him in the course of that discussion about his book. Would you like to come and be a presenter? He didn't say yes, he didn't say no, because he's a thoughtful man. But next year in Gitanagari, at our Gitanagari retreat, all goes well, he'll say yes, and he'll be a presenter, and he's just fantastic. Just fantastic. So, Gaura Lila, Vaishnava Etiquette in Gaura Lila. Now, one of the principal associates, is there anybody kind of new, and you need an introduction to who is Sanatana Goswami? Anybody here in that category? Lots of new people. Okay, new people. Okay. Do you know who is Lord Chaitanya? Those of you have some idea who's Lord Chaitanya? Yes? No? Maybe? No, she doesn't. Okay. You know who is Krishna? Of course. Of course. So, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. One of the principal, texts for us, for Vaishnavas, is Krishna's teaching Arjuna. It's God himself, the absolute truth speaking, infallible knowledge. And to keep it simple, after Krishna's departure from this world, there's a short juncture of time, little Sandhi, and then the next yuga begins. So Dwapara Yuga becomes Kali Yuga. And the characteristics of Kali Yuga are bad. Manda sumanda matayo, manda bhagya hupadrata, very bad situation. And of course, Krishna knew, and he began to consider. This is how it's described about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna began to consider, in this dark age of Kali, people won't be able to understand Bhagavad Gita and how to live their life according to the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. And so the teachings are just fine, but how to live it, how to understand it, and how to live accordingly. So I should do something. I can empower someone, I could send a representative, I could expand myself fast as I come myself and teach how to. Mami kam sharanam. Mami kam sharanam. Coming up very soon is the appearance day of Ramanujacharya, and in the Sri Vaishnavism, that Charama Sloka, they call it, that's the Bhagavad Gita text 1866. It's one of their principal mantras, along with Om Namo Narayanaya Namaha. It's the Charama Sloka. So how to live one's life according to that principle. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, who is Krishna himself, in the mood and the complexion of a devotee of Krishna. Bhava and duty. The bhava of the devotee of Krishna and the luster of Radha. So instead of being blackish, he's golden in complexion, as Radha is golden in complexion, like molten gold. That's who Lord Chaitanya is. And he came specifically to teach how to. And then the how to requires purification, and the purification requires sound. The primary sound is the Mahamantra, but also other teachings. So he gave these teachings to certain selected, very, very elevated personalities. One of them is on the screen here. His name is Sanatana Goswami. By birth, born in a Brahmin family. It's a nice explanation about his life. From the time he was a little boy, nice story. when he was not even 10 years old, he had a dream. In his dream, a Brahmana came and gave him Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam wasn't like, the so many volumes sitting on your bookshelf from the BBT. It was, handwritten and without the Bhaktivedanta purports. But he gave him a copy in his dream. He gave him a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam and asked him to please read it. The dream broke. He woke up surprised. That morning, while he was doing his morning sadhana, a Brahmana came to his home, exactly the same Brahmana in his dream, and gave him the Srimad Bhagavatam. So from that time on, he understood this is from Krishna. And that time on, from his childhood and the rest of his life, he loved Srimad Bhagavatam. And he wrote volumes and volumes based upon the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how to understand and how to live by those teachings. So we're going to see shortly. Lord Chaitanya gave some teachings to him. Now, the painting that's on the screen here, this is Sanatana Goswami. Behind him is a little grass hut. And from time to time, he would stay in the little grass hut or under a different tree and living in Vrindavan. Very elevated Vaishnava. And he's credited for being the author of Hari Bhakti Vilas. For the newer persons, what's Hari Bhakti Vilas? Hari Bhakti Vilas, the characteristics of Hari Bhakti. And so Hari Bhakti Vilas is, in my words, it's a how-to manual. How to do deity worship, how to observe Janmashtami, how to observe Ekadasi, how to chant the holy name, how to perform weddings, anything a Vaishnava's life is made up of. It's a manual that gives scriptural reference how to everything. That's Hari Bhakti Vilas. So in Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatana Goswami is describing the etiquette is the behavior of a pure devotee. Etiquette as the behavior of a pure devotee. Here's the translation from Hari Bhakti Vilas. Since nothing can be successful without sadachara or etiquette, every action should be performed with proper etiquette. We must act according to proper etiquette. That's 3 times. The heart of a saintly person is free from contamination. The way a saintly person acts is known as sadachara. So achara is behavior or conduct, and sadachara, transcendental or absolute truth. Sat, Om Tat Sat. Sadachar. So that's from Hari Bhakti Vilas. Now there's another section in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita is the biography of Lord Chaitanya. And in that biography, there's 3 parts. And in the 3rd part, Antya Lila, he's having a discussion with Sanatana Goswami, also pictured here, about Vaishnava etiquette, about many, many, many things. But I've selected some verses from that section that's related to Vaishnava etiquette. So he's mandating, he's empowering, he's insisting, he's instructing Sanatana Goswami, you shall have to ascertain the basic principles of a devotee, devotional service, love of Godhead, Vaishnava duties, and Vaishnava characteristics. No, Hari Bhakti Vilas is such a book, but here's the instruction to compile or assemble such literature. In that same section, Antya Lila, my dear Sanatana, although you are the deliverer of the entire universe, and although even the demigods and great saints are purified by touching you, it is the characteristic of a devotee to observe and protect the Vaishnava etiquette. Maintenance of the Vaishnava etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. Now the painting on the left, that's Lord Chaitanya. dancing, and the painting on the right, that's Sanatana Goswami, receiving instructions from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu how he wants him to engage himself, writing literature, researching scripture, realizing and practicing it himself, and living the life of an ideal person, where the maintenance of the etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. Just like here's a garland, it's an ornament. And, decorations are awarded to someone who is a qualified individual. Anyway, without all examples, there's golden ornaments that decorate a king. And there's ornaments of a Vaishnava, and the decoration is his etiquette, whether he has an ornament or not. The ornament is his etiquette. And probably all of us have I've certainly met some persons who are they don't even have to say anything. Just their presence, you feel this is a very elevated person. This is a very cultured, elevated, who knows how many lifetimes they've been living a life of purity, very special person. It's an ornament of the person, what to speak of when they speak or when they do something, just their presence. It's inside and it comes out, even without speaking or behaving. So it's the ornament of a Vaishnava, maintenance of etiquette. Therefore, it's an important topic. And in the same section, the word that is used in the teachings to Sanatana Goswami is this word maryada. And it's the very same word used in class number 1 that you didn't see, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur is using the principle of respect in 8 categories. Respect is to be given to anyone, and then in sequence, anyone who's human, then going up, anyone who's civilized human, because there's some humans that aren't so civilized, and then some persons, it goes up and up and up. Some persons that have a position in society, a king or a celebrated person, a person that's an authority or administrator, then someone that's a learned person, and so on. Someone that manifests good qualities, because sometimes they're learned persons that don't have good qualities. So he gives a list of 8, and the top of the list is the devotee, the Vaishnava. So Maryada, this is the negative. If one transgresses the laws of etiquette, people make fun of him, and thus he is vanquished in both this world and the next. So don't neglect or transgress etiquette. By observing the etiquette, you have satisfied my mind. Who else but you could show this example? Now, much earlier in this whole section, he's told him, I want you to research this now and write books on this topic and exemplify it. Now he's saying, you're exemplifying it. You're the right person to take on that service because you're there. You understand it. You live it. You breathe it. And that's your service. So he did that service. He lived by his example, and he taught by his writing and his words as well. So that's a little bit of the background on the topic of Vaishnava etiquette from Gaura Lila. And now I'm going to go into some examples. And in this first term, this is from the class number 1, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur is describing respect should be given to all human beings. Now, in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, he accepted the order of sannyas when he was very young, just 24 years of age. His mother requested him, please don't go to Vrindavan. I know you want to go to Vrindavan. Please don't go to Vrindavan, because if you go to Vrindavan, I may never hear of you again. And my heart would break. Please go to Puri, because Krishna is in Puri. And the devotees from Bengal every year go for Rath Yatra. And when they come back from Rath Yatra, at least I can hear about you. Maybe I can send some prasadam with them to take to you for Rath Yatra. So he went to Puri. He stayed in Puri for a short while, some months. And then after enlivening everybody by his presence and his association and his teachings and his kirtan, he made an excuse. He said, I had an elder brother named Vishvarup. Vishvarup took sannyas when I was much younger, and I want to go in South India, see if I can find him. I heard that's where he went. He's omniscient. He's Krishna, so he doesn't know where his brother is, but it was an excuse or a purpose to take the chanting and the teachings all around India and in all directions. So as he's traveling on the road with his arms raised, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and chanting, there's different names of the Lord that he would recite. He came to one village where he found some very nice Vaishnavas. So he was enlivened by their association. In one particular place, he found a leper named Vasudeva. Vasudeva was so infected with this disease that his body was literally rotting. And literally rotting meant there were worms or living entities that had dug holes into his body. And when that living entity would fall out of his hole in his body, he'd pick the living entity back, a little insect, and put it back in the hole. He was very compassionate. Unbelievable. Lord Chaitanya saw him. And when Lord Chaitanya saw him and found out his character and his conduct, he immediately ran to him and embraced him. And when he ran to him and embraced him, the leper was saying, don't touch me. My body is infected with this terrible disease, oozing, smelly substances from my body. Lord Chaitanya said, because you're such a wonderful devotee, I want to embrace you. And he embraced him. The painting is indicating the pastime. He became transformed. His body became well again, like a miracle cure. He's showing respect, not because he was an elevated person by his material circumstance. He was just an ordinary fellow. But he was human. And on top of just being human, he was a devotee. So he was respecting him for those reasons. He's teaching us the principle of Nara Matrena Maryada, respecting human beings, anyone in this human form of life. Now, there's a nice painting that comes later in Lord Chaitanya's Lila. In Lord Chaitanya's Lila, he was given a place to stay when he went to Puri by the king, arranged from a nice brahmana. He had a little room called Gambira, and it means something in the local language. It's a little tiny space, but connected to a much larger living facility. So it was private. And so Lord Chaitanya had a practice. He would go here and there each day. And one of the things that he did when he went here and there was kirtan. And he would chant and dance and dance and dance and dance in ecstasy. And he would become fatigued. At least at Lila, because his body is all spiritual, doesn't become fatigued. But it was giving his servant, who is pictured here, is named Govinda, the opportunity to massage his body, and particularly massage his legs, while he was resting. So on one occasion, Lord Chaitanya woke up after his resting and saw Govinda still in the room and said, Govinda, what are you doing here? He said, well, I couldn't step over you because after massaging you, I was on the other side. And then, well, how'd you get inside? You stepped over me. That's what the painting is showing. He said, well, for service, Maryada, the etiquette is you don't step over somebody. But in the case of service, you can transgress that principle in order to serve. But when leaving, that was just my own enjoyment. It was time for lunch, yes, but I didn't go for lunch because that's my enjoyment instead of your service. A similar, different but similar circumstance occurred. Many of you know the pastime. It's from Mahabharata, where Bhima was going to get a lotus flower with 1,000 petals for Draupadi because it came floating down Alaknanda River, and she saw it. She asked Bhima, there must be more where this one came from the celestial region. Can you get some more? So off Bhima goes, leaping, because he is the son of Vayu, traveling at great distances, each leap. But when he got to a certain place, there was a path, and there was a monkey lying on the path. The monkey was Hanuman. So he made the request, my dear monkey, could you please move? You're right in the path. And the monkey said, I'm too old. He said, if you want, you've been climbing this big distance, you could just hop over me. He said, no, that's an offense because within there's the super soul. And you don't step over the super soul. So I can't step over your body. So can you kindly move? And Hanuman said, you can just move my tail and go around me. So he tried, Bhima's as strong as many elephants, and he couldn't lift his tail. Anyways, a nice story. But a similar circumstance. He couldn't jump over Hanuman because it'd be jumping over Super Soul. It's just an etiquette. Now, I was narrating this, and somebody in the audience later said, from a little boy, my father taught me, you don't step over somebody. But I never knew why. Now I know why. It's an etiquette, but there's a reason why the etiquette is there. So supposing somebody doesn't know etiquette, making a transgression like that is, amongst people that aren't cultured, is common. Like putting the Bhagavad Gita on the floor or something. Not properly respecting something that should be respected. The transgression is different than if you know. Now that we know, step over people. And if you're in the way, it's good to get out of the way so people don't have to step over you. In Lord Chaitanya's teachings to Sanatana Goswami, in this same section, or it's in a different section actually, he's describing to Sanatana Goswami about respecting even an ant. In the story that's narrated, it's from a different Purana, but it's the story, he's telling us the story about Narada, pictured here in the center of the painting, and Magari the hunter. And it's the point is respecting even an ant. So the narration that Lord Chaitanya told was there was a hunter named Magari, and his program was he didn't just hunt animals, he half-killed animals purposefully because he enjoyed seeing them flapping and writhing in pain. And Narada was going through the forest and saw this animal, that animal, the other animal writhing in pain. And what, this? Then he saw the hunter. And when he saw the hunter, he called, hey, wait a minute, stop. And when he called, the animals he was hunting ran away, and the hunter became upset. Why'd you do that? You're a saintly person. You're spoiling my occupation. They had some discussion. without all the details. It takes too long to go through all the details. He understood eventually that there's sin, that for the pain the living entities experience, half dead, he will have to experience himself. And who's going to take that reaction? Do you want that reaction? No. Then you have to have another occupation than killing animals. Well, it's my livelihood. I have a wife. I have children. I don't know anything else. The story goes, Narada is instructing him, I will maintain you on one condition. You have to break your bow. He looked at his bow, he looked at Narada, looked at his bow, looked at Narada, and he trusted Narada, so he broke his bow. And what Narada arranged was that because people in the village that didn't live in the forest, they heard this hunter had been transformed into a sadhu by Narada's association. So they came and offered edibles, grains and fruits and vegetables, and more than what he needed. He had to give some of it away. He was maintained by his devotion and the transformation that came as a result of Narada's association. So the painting is showing one time Narada came with his friend Angira Muni just to check on Mrigari, how's it going? And when he saw, you look in the back part of the painting, there's a little cottage where he was residing. And when he saw Narada, he came running, Narada Muni. But when he was running on the path leading to Narada Muni, there were some ants. So he got down on his knees and with the upper garment was brushing the ants to the side because he didn't want to step on an ant. And so Angira said, just see, this man who his previous happiness was half killing animals, now he doesn't want to even harm an ant. Vaishnava etiquette, respecting even ant. Or here's a Prabhupada teaching. This is Prabhupada in Los Angeles. Prabhupada was saying, if you're doing some service for Krishna, supposing you're gathering some flowers to offer to Krishna, the flower should be offered to Krishna because then the plant that's produced the flower will get spiritual benefit for producing that flower that you offer to Krishna. But to get to that flower, you may have to walk across the grass. Don't walk across the grass because the grass will also be crushed by your feet or the insects that are crawling in the grass unless you're doing some service for Krishna. And then you can walk across the grass to get the flower to offer to Krishna. It was like he was giving instruction, practical instruction, as Lord Chaitanya was giving, in this case, practical instruction to Sanatana Goswami. We don't harm other living entities. Ahimsa is one of the principles of knowledge mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, and it's one of the principles that Vaishnavas are to live by. Within reason, as far as possible, because when we're doing anything, when you're breathing, there's living entities. When you're drinking water, there's living entities. When you're just existing, there's living entities who are at risk because you're existing. So now what do you do about that? You do everything that's for Krishna, and then the living entities that sacrifices their life, they'll benefit. But we don't take liberties and take lives of other living entities unnecessarily. It's just a principle of Vaishnava etiquette that's taught within Chaitanya Charitamrita, or Lord Chaitanya to his associates. Here's another painting. This is now one of the Maryada principles from class number 1. Raja Maryada, where respect goes to some position. Now, Nimai Pandit was his name when he was young. He was a young Brahmin boy. His father's name was Jagannath Mishra. And Jagannath Mishra died when he was young. So he went to Gaya with his classmates, his students, to offer the proper rituals to his father at Gaya. And the painting is meant to show the footprints of Lord Vishnu, because it's one of the procedures when visiting Gaya is to offer respects to Vishnu, Vishnu Pada. And the person behind him, you'll see his painting again, along with his students, it's his spiritual master, who offers respect to his spiritual master, Ishwara Puri. So it's offering respect because of position is taught in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. His mother certainly had the position of a superior. And so here's his mother embracing him after he had his head shaved and taken sannyas and so forth and so on. And she's embracing him. He's allowing him to embrace her to embrace him. And she's making her request to not go to Vrindavan, go to Puri. So he went to follow according to her indication. When he reached Puri, he became a celebrity very soon, or well-known personality very soon. And one of the persons that came to know of him was the king. And the king made the request of his closest, Lord Chaitanya's closest associate, to arrange a meeting so he could just be in his presence. And Lord Chaitanya refused. He says, I'm a sannyasi. I don't meet with worldly people. I'm sorry. But he's a nice, and he's a devotee, and Lord Chaitanya refused, just in principle. So finally a suggestion was made. How about this? What, can you meet his son? He doesn't have that position. Because the son is the representative of the father, and you could give your kindness to his son. And then if you embrace his son, when his father embraces his son, he'll get that benefit of embracing one who has been embraced by Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya smiled and he agreed. So this is a painting showing the respect that went to the position of the son of King Purushottama. And sure enough, when he went back and his father embraced his son, he felt ecstatic. He felt the spiritual potencies are charged in his son's body just from being embraced by Lord Chaitanya. And then further and further and further details, Lord Chaitanya eventually gave his mercy to the king, and it was by a clever arrangement. It's a very nice pastime, and the details of Chaitanya Charitamrita are very, very sweet. But the simple version is, the king was requesting the chief priest, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, please give some means. Please devise, you're very intelligent. So he suggested, after much thought, every year at Rath Yatra time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is dancing and dancing and dancing and chanting before the Rath cart. And he stops midway and takes rest in the garden, Jagannath Ballabh garden. And while he's taking rest in the Jagannath Ballabh garden, if you don't wear your king's attire, but simple Vaishnava attire, I can train you how to recite certain verses from the Bhagavatam that are very, very sweet. And when Lord Chaitanya, when resting, hears these very, very sweet verses sung nicely and properly, he'll be very happy and he'll show you his mercy. So the king liked the idea. And that's exactly what happened. There are different paintings, but this is one where the king is there massaging Lord Chaitanya's feet, reciting these slokas. There's many other Vaishnavas in the area, but Lord Chaitanya makes like he didn't know who it was, and he embraces the king. And then he realizes, oh no, and now I become contaminated. I touched the body of a materialistic person, and the king is dancing in ecstasy. Compliments of the chief priest, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So that's on the principle of Raja Maryada, respect to position. And then there's respect to those who are well educated. Now this is going back chronologically, but chronologically when Nimai Pandit, young Brahmin boy, was growing up, he became a teacher of grammar, Sanskrit grammar, Vyakarana. He had a school. Because he was superlative teacher, he had a lot of students, and he was very popular, superlative teacher. The person pictured on the left is a learned scholar from Kashmir. His name is Keshava Kashmiri. And it was one of the sports of the time. I guess, because we hear about it a lot. Learned persons, sometimes they would travel from one place to another place. They'd have their whole entourage come with them. They would find out who was the most learned person in this place, and they formally challenge that person to a debate. There would be a formal debate, and there were rules of debate, and the person that lost would have to become a follower of the one who won. In this way, the one that was won could have more followers and just go from place to place and gather followers. And he was very proud. Keshava Kashmiri was a worshiper of Saraswati, and he had been given a benediction by his worship of Saraswati that he could never be defeated. And so one time he decided, one of the seats of high learning in India at the time was Navadvip. Many, many, many learned Brahmanas lived there. So he went. His intention was to do the same thing, find out who was the smartest person, most respected person, challenge them to a debate. And he heard about Nimai Pandit. He's just this teenager, but learned Brahmana. So he was walking along the side of the Ganges one day and saw the young Brahmin boy seated underneath a tree and many, many students surrounding him. And he was curious, who is this? Maybe this is Nimai Pandit. So he came over and introduced himself. And Nimai, knowing the reputation of Keshava Kashmiri, still offered all respect because he was highly learned. Oh, you're Keshava Kashmiri. I've heard you're very learned. Could you do all of us a favor? Could you compose some nice verses in glorification of the Ganga? Oh, yeah. No problem. And spontaneously, he composed 100 verses, rhyming verses in perfect Sanskrit before all the students of Nimai. Nimai was appreciating, oh, you're such a scholar. Who could do like this? Could you share with me in verse number 64 out of the 100, what were the qualities and faults? And Keshava Kashmiri said, I was just composing verses. I haven't remembered verse number 64. So Lord Chaitanya then recited verse number 64 and then asked the same question. Could you tell me the qualities and faults? And he said, how did you remember verse number 64? He said, some people have a gift at composing Sanskrit verses, and some persons have a gift of good memory. Now, could you tell me what are the qualities and faults in verse number 64? And he said, well, there's no faults. It's all qualities. And that Nimai pointed out the qualities. Then he pointed out the fault. It's written in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And as he was speaking the faults, the classmates, the students of Nimai were giggling, little boys. And Nimai said, don't laugh. He's a learned scholar. This isn't nice. This is not proper etiquette. We should be respected. And Keshava Kashmiri was dumbfounded that he couldn't speak. So he went back to his place where he was staying for the night, and he did his puja to Saraswati, who appeared to him in a dream. And he asked in his dream, why did you abandon me? Because you gave me this promise. He said, because the person that you are speaking with is my Lord and Master. From him, I receive my ability to give you some ability. And I can't confront and challenge him. So I was absent from your tongue. because he had respect for Saraswati. He had the ability to speak because of her. And that's her master. So he went back the next day and offered his obeisances publicly, paid his obeisances to Nimai Pandit. So respect. If someone is learned, even they may be proud, they're to be respected. That was a behavior or etiquette that was demonstrated by Nimai Pandit, even as a young fellow. And that's his education. And then for ashram, one of the other, in that list of 8 items from Bhakti Vinod Thakur, I was just decided to follow that list and show how Lord Chaitanya displayed these very same teachings. This is a painting depicting Ishwara Puri. Puri is a sannyas title, and Ishwara Puri came one time to Navadvip. Just he was traveling about, and he came to Navadvip. And immediately, Nimai offered his respect. He's the personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, offering his respect, showing proper respect to a sannyasi. And he invited him, please come. My mother would like to prepare a meal. Can you come have lunch with us? It was very gracious, and he went, and he was very much appreciating Mother Sachi's character and qualities, and Nimai's character and quality. And he said, I heard you're a very good scholar. Could you read over my manuscript? It's a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, and you can tell me if there's some defect or something that needs to be changed. And Lord Chaitanya said, anything that you write doesn't need any editing. But if as a service to you, I'll do what you're asking. It's just respect and respect and respect and respect and respect. And more respect. Same thing. This is in his childhood. Then later, after childhood, he went to Puri and lived as a sannyasi. And there was another devotee in Puri whose name was Chota Haridas. Chota means little, because there were 2 Haridas. There were several Haridasas. One of them was big, Bada Haridas. And then there was a little one, or lesser than. So he was called Chota Haridas. And Chota Haridas was a sannyasi. He had formal vows of sannyas, and he was really gifted at singing. And so he would sing and sing and sing and sing and charm everyone with his, not just like nice voice, but his devotion was what was the really attractive part. And he would sing, and Lord Chaitanya would hear him singing, and the devotees would hear him singing, and it's just part of their life in Puri. So one day, Balaram Acharya, another Brahmana, he wanted to prepare a meal for Lord Chaitanya, so he requested sannyasi Chota Haridas to gather the ingredients, and he would do the cooking. So Chota Haridas went to the home of Madhavi Devi to gather some alms to prepare the nice meal for Lord Chaitanya, cooked by Balaram Acharya. And as Mahaprabhu was eating, he was tasting and said, this is such fine ingredients. Where did it come from? Balaram Acharya said that Chota Haridas went to gather alms from Madhavi Devi, and that's where the rice came from her. He said, this low-class person is associating, he doesn't give the details of what the exchange was with Madhavi, but he said, he's a sannyasi and he's mixing in this low-class way with a woman. I don't want to see him ever again. Like, ever again. And then the word went to Chota Haridas. He didn't say, wait a minute, I didn't do anything, what's this all about? He just got this edict, and he was brokenhearted because his life and soul was Lord Chaitanya. And so the devotees saw how sad he had become, and they tried to petition Lord Chaitanya again and again to, he didn't do anything, and, please give him some opportunity to get your association again. And Lord Chaitanya said, you keep bothering me like this, I'm going to leave Puri. So they stopped. The door was locked. Chota Haridas decided, if I can't have Lord Chaitanya's association, I should give up my life. So he went to a sacred place in the confluence of the sacred rivers, and he drowned himself. And the word came back, Lord Chaitanya, Chota Haridas drowned himself. He said, good. Anyone that's done what he's done there's the fit ending to his life. I was like, really heavy. But the commentary says, Lord Chaitanya knew during his time, there were persons who would take the dress of a sannyasi on the outside, but the inside, they were fallen. And he didn't like it. So he was showing by example with his own dear devotee, Chota Haridas, I draw the line. He was very strict, and he wanted sannyasis to be very strict in dealings with the sannyas vow, dealings with women. So the painting is showing in the evening hours, Shri Mahaprabhu would go by the sea, and Chota Haridas in this angelic form would sing, and Lord Chaitanya would enjoy his singing. That is to say, he continued accepting his service, but he wanted to show how important it is to be a proper observer of the etiquette of a Vaishnava, or etiquette of a sannyasi. The sannyas ashram was to be respected. Here's another example of from Gaura Lila. This is not from Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's from Chaitanya Mangala. But the painting is depicting this fellow. On the backside of the painting is an educated young fellow, a classmate. His name was Raghunath Shiromani. Raghunath Shiromani was a Vidya Maryada. He was well educated, and Lord Chaitanya respected his education. He is a little ambitious. He desired that his commentary on a famous Tattva Chintamani would be recognized and appreciated by others. However, one day when they're crossing the Ganga on a boat, he found out from Lord Chaitanya that he had already written a commentary. And he's feeling, as you see, very sad. Oh, no. So Lord Chaitanya understood his sadness. So he took his commentary and threw it over the river, over the side of the boat into the river, out of respect for the learnedness of Raghunath Shiromani. Another superlative example is that of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, pictured here. Now, many of our Vaishnavas know this pastime. For those of you that are not familiar with this pastime, I'll narrate it briefly. When Lord Chaitanya was asked by his mother to go to Puri, he went with just a few devotees. One of those devotees was Nityananda, and Nityananda didn't like the idea that my Lord is carrying a danda, so he broke his danda and threw it in the river. And Lord Chaitanya was upset, transcendentally, it was a pastime, so that he could enter into Puri himself alone. He went, so you go ahead of me, and I'll come later, or I'll go first, and you'll come later, but I'm not going to travel with you anymore. You broke my danda. It was a pastime. And so he entered the Jagannath temple. When he saw Lord Jagannath in the temple, in ecstasy, seeing the form of the Lord, in this loving mood of separation with big eyes. It's a very nice pastime. Why Jagannath has big eyes. You know why Jagannath has big eyes? Because Narada Muni describes he was present in Dwarka, when someone was commenting or discussing Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, and Krishna, hearing his pastimes in Vrindavan, was feeling such separation from Vrindavan and the associates of Vrindavan that his eyes got really big and his arms withdrew and there were symptoms of ecstasy. And Narada said, I've seen this form. It's Krishna in the mood of separation from the residents of Vrindavan, Jagannath. When Lord Chaitanya saw Jagannath, his ecstasy in separation from Krishna in Vrindavan was magnified manyfold. And he fell on the ground unconscious, swooned in ecstasy, just fell on the ground. The guards thought this is a wild man. They were going to toss him out. But just at that time, the chief priest, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, came and saw this young sannyasi lying on the floor and the guards getting ready to toss him out. And they said, no. Bring him to my home. I'll take care of him. Many things happened. The Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a very learned scholar. He said to Lord Chaitanya when he became revived, you're young, your features are very beautiful. It's going to be very difficult for you as a young, attractive man to maintain your sannyas vows. If you like, and that's what this painting is, if you like, I can instruct you in Vedanta Sutra. And by knowing Vedanta Sutra, it will fortify your renunciation. The Lord Chaitanya said, fine. So for 7 days, seated in an elevated seat because Lord Chaitanya was a sannyasi and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a grahastha, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is instructing him in Vedanta Sutra. And the 8th morning, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, you don't say anything. I don't know if you're understanding or not understanding. And then Lord Chaitanya said, I understand Vedanta Sutra very well, but your explanation is covering the meeting the more you speak. Oh, really? Well, if you understand you understand Vedanta Sutra, then you please explain. So then, with respect to the education of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, never departing from respect, he gave this such beautiful explanation of Vedanta Sutra that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, vastly learned scholar, was astonished. Not just at the erudition, but the insight of this young sannyasi. And he declared, you're not just a young sannyasi needing my protection by learning Vedanta Sutra. Who are you? And then Lord Chaitanya smiled, and as the Chaitanya Bhagavat says, he showed his 6-armed form. 6-armed form means 2 hands, Krishna holding his flute, 2 hands, Ram holding bow and arrow, and 2 hands as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu carrying the sannyas danda and his kamandalu. 6-armed Prasad Bhuj. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya fainted. And from that point on, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya understood he's not just, a smart Brahmin or a learned fellow like me. He's the object. He's the personality of Godhead. But he did so in the medium of respect. He never departed from respect to establish his position. Here he's giving some instruction in devotion to a devotee in a little private place. He offered his respect also to Haridas Thakur, pictured there with a little Muslim beard, because Haridas Thakur was born not in a Vaishnava or a Hindu family. He was born in a Muslim family, but from his early childhood, he was constantly chanting Krishna's name. So Lord Chaitanya offered him respect and gave him a title, the Acharya for the chanting of the holy name. I came to deliver the holy name. You're the acharya for the chanting of the holy name. And when he left his body, when living entities leave their body, the body is not fit. But Lord Chaitanya didn't treat his body as something that's contaminated. He picked up his body and joyously danced and danced and danced in great ecstasy, took him by the sea, bathed his body in the sea with his own hand. He created a samadhi for him near the sea. Today, to this very day, that place is there, the samadhi of Haridas Thakur, very celebrated place in Vrindavan. And he again and again and again offered respect to devotees in so many ways. So there's one other story I'm going to narrate, and the reason for narrating is two. It's funny. And another is, I didn't understand it. When I saw this painting, I was doing some research for photographs, images for this presentation. I kept finding this one. And I didn't know, I never knew what the pastime was. So what I did was I asked Varsana Swami. Some of you know Varsana Swami. Varsana Swami is a very nice sannyasi, more than a superlative sannyasi, lives in New Vrindavan. And from when he was little, along with Radhanath Maharaj, they were buddies when in the early days of their time together in New Vrindavan. They both became very fascinated with Gaura Lila. To this day, he's steeped in Gaura Lila. So I asked Varsana Swami, what's the story behind this painting? And he gave me the story behind the painting, which I'm going to narrate. But if there's somebody here I should give a copy of what Varsana Swami wrote to me, I'd be happy to share it. Should I share it with you? I'll share it with you. You share it and you share it with others. Huh? I'll send it to you and you do what's needful. So again, this is Chaitanya Mangala. And the person who is the other person in the painting is Murari Gupta. Murari Gupta, by name and by trade, by profession, he was a physician. And he was about 8 years older. So younger boys are to respect older boys. But there was a very loving relationship between the two of them. And Murari Gupta was a Ram Bhakta. He had the bhakti of Hanuman in him. He was invested with that kind of devotion for Lord Ramachandra. At the same time, because of the influence of his time, he had some attraction for Yoga Vashishta, which has impersonal meanings. Not strictly impersonal, but it has impersonal meanings. And he, a young Brahmin boy, liked to espouse teachings from Yoga Vashishta. And there's details and details and details that you can read in this little document. I'm just going to summarize. The purpose of Nimai to Murari Gupta was to have him let go, give up this leaning towards impersonal conceptions of the absolute truth. Because he knew he was a bhakta. And, he would tease him and behave in a way that would irritate Murari Gupta enough that he would stop it. For example, the description goes in Chaitanya Mangala. Lord Chaitanya and his students were following behind Murari Gupta, who was exercising his arms while giving teachings about Yoga Vashishta, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, everything is Brahman, and Soham, in explaining in an impersonal way. And Lord Chaitanya would then mock him, standing behind him, and gesture like he was gesturing. And so Murari Gupta looked back and heard the giggling of his students, and didn't say anything because it wasn't nice that he was doing that. But he did it, went on and on. So eventually he just turned around and said, "Look, This isn't proper behavior. You're the son of Jagannath Mishra. And Jagannath Mishra's son would never do things like this. So Nimai understood he was bringing his father into this. He said, I'll teach you a lesson tomorrow. And this is the lesson tomorrow. So he was worshiping his deity of Lord Ramachandra, and he made all the offerings and preparations. And in his mind, he was seeing this beautiful form of Nimai, that he was very attracted to the form of Nimai. And then suddenly, the form of Nimai showed up at his door, because their houses were reasonably close. And Nimai came right up to where he was taking his meal. And as you see, he did something that's not proper. He urinated on his plate. And he said, why are you upset? Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, everything is Brahman. Why are you upset with me? And Roy Gupta went, oh no, caught me red-handed. Said, so give this up. I've tried in so many ways. Just give it up. You're a devotee of Lord Ramachandra. This impersonalism is all one. It's not, they don't fit. Give it up, give it up. The next day, he went to the home of Lord Chaitanya. He saw Lord Chaitanya, little boy, hiding behind the sari of his mother, and he paid his obeisances to the little boy hiding behind the sari of his mother. And Jagannath Mishra, the father, said, what are you doing? You will bring ruination to my son. You offer obeisances to this young boy. And Mari Gupta said to the father, one day you'll understand who your son really is. In this way, it's that there's more details in this little document that you'll get. But it's a pastime where his intention wasn't nice. I mean, his intention was nice, but his behavior was not nice. It certainly looked like disrespect. But it was purposeful. It was a loving gesture and a humorous gesture. And Murari Gupta eventually became, a full-on, not with impersonal leading kind of young man, but he became a pure devotee of Lord Ramachandra by the association of Nimai, which is what he wanted. And so there's the end of our little presentation on Vaishnava Etiquette in Gaura Lila. Now, one of the reasons we're going through this exercise is we're to understand anything about anything, what to speak of the absolute truth, what is about Bhagavad Dharma, pleasing the Supreme Lord. That the ultimate place of authority for us is Scripture. Aparushaya Shabda Praman. Scripture that's come from a perfect source. That's Chaitanya Charitamrita. Next, we're going to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Ramayana. And these are authoritative sources that they're beacon lights for us. If we don't know, we can go to the Scripture and get answers. And then our answer should be aligned with what the Scripture says. So I thought, as a procedure, I would like to just give pastimes that illuminate the teaching that came in part one. And what is Vaishnava etiquette? Then what does it look like? How did Lord Chaitanya exhibit it? And then Srimad Bhagavatam and Lord Ramachandra, Maryada Purushottama. So that's what the presentation is. Let's see if there's some discussion. A little bit long-winded, but I hope you get the idea.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the beautiful class. There are so many beautiful examples of how the respect is maintained through etiquette, by following the etiquette, depending on the position and the relation uh, two people carry, the Vaishnavas. Uh, Thank you so much for giving the importance of etiquette. And I got one question. Uh, when the etiquette is maintained by both the persons, both the devotees, uh, it is easy to have harmonious and beautiful relationships. Whereas when etiquette is not reciprocated, how one should handle, because one side you keep giving the etiquette, and yeah, because at times it is easier on certain relations where easier to give respect or maintain respect from distance, but in the close proximity relations, how would one maintain the respect when the etiquette is not maintained?
In class number 1, which was the other day, an example from Gaura Lila was Lord Chaitanya respecting the offending Ramchandra Puri. Respect, etiquette is to be exhibited regardless of reciprocation of etiquette. Now, it's certainly possible to respect from a distance. And that's not, a non-option. It's an option. Even if one is going to distance oneself from an unwholesome person, you don't depart from respect. The fundamental principle, that's and Vaishnava etiquette. What your question is what to do, maintain Vaishnava etiquette in any circumstance. And what it might look like depends. In the case of the Ramchandra Puri, he adarat. He showed respect. Even the behavior was bad. Another example that we discussed, class number 1, is Yudhisthira, the emblem of virtue. When he came before Dhritarashtra, knowing all that Dhritarashtra was party to, he respected him because of his position. He's the elder brother of his father. Never depart from respect. Never depart from Vaishnava etiquette. And what it looks like can be different depending upon circumstance. So that's what to do. Know what it is and stay there. And then by that purity of maintaining proper etiquette and pleasing Krishna, for the purpose of etiquette is to please Krishna, then it can elevate the circumstance. The potential is there. Some persons don't want to be elevated. They want to stay stuck, so that's okay. Be virtuous person anyway, because that gives the option for the other person to become impacted or benefited. That's a principle. Okay?
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for this very
Krishna.
nice class. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, I was wondering, I guess my question is on similar lines as what was asked. Like Govinda stepped over Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Govardhan Hill allows Krishna and Balaram to walk over. Sometimes the walking over may not be physical, but by actions. And so how does, like...
What's the difference between physical and action? They sound similar.
Like figuratively, like someone, by their actions, it seems they are overstepping or not offering respect.
Okay.
And how much can I, as a devotee, evaluate someone else's respect? And how much can I evaluate what I do as a devotee? Do I have the position to evaluate what someone else is doing?
Okay, those are 3 questions.
Sorry.
For starters, to discern one thing from another thing requires intelligence. Yes? It's intelligence mean discriminating this from that. And if you don't have intelligence, better be careful. And if you have the capacity to discriminate, let your discrimination be aligned with Guru Sadhu Shastra. So in order to strengthen your intelligence, the capacity to discriminate is intelligence. It comes from super soul. So you depending upon the strength of your Krishna consciousness, you'll be given intelligence to discern one thing from another thing. Now, in many cases, we're moved by the modes of nature, not by intelligence. Or intelligence is moved by the modes of nature. It's materially contaminated intelligence instead of spiritual intelligence. So try to one of the seems like the general thing that you're asking is what should you do when it looks like there's some transgression, and how do I discern whether it's transgression or somebody's just transcendental? Because there are such things as being transcendental. And then there's no fault when it's arising from something that's transcendental. I mean, just as a detail, it's from Scripture, but Sachi says to her father, Daksha, you're an aparadi. You're saying my husband, Lord Shiva, doesn't have proper etiquette. He's beyond etiquette. And you don't understand that because you're who you are. And therefore you're the offender. And details. So is Lord Shiva is so-and-so beyond the etiquette of a Vaishnava? Vaishnavas observe etiquette. In some cases, they may not. There's a verse in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam that says, it's a celebrated verse, where if one is on the platform of spontaneous love, they may not observe etiquette. A nice example. The old lady that climbed up on the shoulders of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to see Jagannath. And Govinda's there like, get down. And she was just so absorbed and she couldn't see through the crowd. She's a little lady and she stood on his shoulders holding onto the Jagannath, the Garuda Stamba. And then when she realized she was so embarrassed, she got down and fell at his feet. But Lord Chaitanya said, no. If only I had such spontaneous love to see Lord Jagannath, my life would be perfect. She's a perfect person. So he had the acumen to understand, is she an aparadi or is she a transcendentalist in spontaneous love of God? So most of us don't have that capacity. So we observe etiquette. And if you have the capacity to see whether it's spontaneous or aparad, stepping over, then then good for you. And if you don't, keep it in the humble position. Don't be a judge of others. No, align yourself with Shastra. Know what Shastras, and also become familiar. And as you become, as your Krishna consciousness becomes stronger, then your discerning capacity will become stronger. Krishna will give you the intelligence to discern one thing from another thing. Yeah. Yes, front row. Microphone. When you came sit in the front, I thought you'd have a question. The fellow sitting next to you, he almost always has a question. front row people. There we go.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much. This is my third experience in person,
Oh,
so close with you. And thank you so much.
you started in the back, but you came up front.
Yeah. So, as Mataji was asking and Prabhuji was also mentioning, and I was going through this presentation. It's really wonderful. I always feel like it's a gold standard for people like me, at least for me. I come with so much of conditioned mind, and everything is with that. I always behave. I don't think I give the right respect, especially the respect start at home, and everywhere we just pretend most of the time, at least my story. So
What's the punchline here? I want, besides your humility, what's next?
how to correct myself, I don't know.
How to correct yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, your question, to take your question in a different context, is called the anartha vritti. So how do you go forward in the anartha vritti process? The answer is bhajana kriya, in the association of sadhu. So intrinsic, before even sadhu sangha and bhajana kriya, there's some faith. That's how it starts. And then Krishna sends sadhu sangha, and then together with sadhu sangha, you do bhajana kriya. And that's the potency. It's not you doing something. It's Krishna's mercy coming, recognizing you're trying to reach me. Not each one of us, not just pointing the finger or identifying you personally, but that's the cleansing is not me. The cleansing is Krishna's potency. I show Krishna, Krishna shows his kindness. And that's what we do. So you're in the I'm not there yet club. Welcome to the club. You have a lot of club members. So that's how we go beyond our shortcomings, is the bhajana kriya in the association of devotees. And ideally, persons that are exemplary. So find exemplary devotees and become like that yourself in relation to others, to whatever degree you have that, Shakti from Krishna. Even a Madhyama can be an example for others. So try to be exemplary. I mean, the whole, as I said with the very, very beginning, what's the Hare Krishna movement going to be 50 years from now? And, your question is my question. My question is your question. How are we going to, is there something that we can do today to help the persons that say what you're saying in a humble mood go beyond their shortcoming? Yes. Training and education, what does it look like? So that as I'm getting in my bhakti mobile, my spiritual practices, and I want to put the right data in the GPS. How am I going to get there? You have a good GPS. Lord Chaitanya's teachings. And so just stick with it. Then how long is it going to take? How long it takes, that's however long it takes. That's how long it takes. Some persons is quick, some persons is medium, some persons is slow. But stay the course. How long have you been practicing Krishna consciousness? A number of years, probably.
Yeah, 10 years.
30 years.
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Let's go for 30.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
And I hope to see your smiling face in another 20 years. I hope I'm still around.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
But, stay the course. And then you'll be the example setter for others because you stayed the course. and you're still smiling and you hadn't like tossed in the towel saying, "Oh, I'm too covered." We may be covered, but Krishna is all powerful. Abide with Krishna in sadhu sangha, and you'll get there. Okay. In the back. Put your hand up again, please. Oops. Okay. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. It was very nice to hear you after a long time, I can say. I heard you first time in Chicago temple.
Ah.
It was like you were along with His Holiness Radhanath Swami, and I heard Maharaj Kirtan and your lecture that day. So it was really nice and wonderful to hear again after so many years. So I just echo Yashoda Vatsal Prabhu, what Prabhu said just now. How can I correct myself?
How can I correct myself?
Yeah. So I would like to ask rather a reverse question, which says how we can correct others if you don't have that courage to correct anyone without doing any Vaishnava aparadha.
Well, next question. Bhagavad Gita 17:15. You familiar?
Yeah, yes.
Austerity of speech, 17:15. So you're entitled to correct those with whom you have a relationship where you are their superior and they accept you as superior, supposing you're their father or their teacher or even an elder friend. And if they have that relationship and you understand the other person can receive, then you can. And otherwise you can't. It's disrespect. Unless you know the person is of the nature that they're open to hear from a junior. I like hearing from juniors. There's really good persons that can give feedback on not necessarily some mishap, but even like say something that isn't 100% spot on with a detail of Shastra. There are certain persons that they know how to do it, and I understand where they're coming from, and I appreciate it. But they're not speaking for purpose of correcting. They're speaking for the purpose of service. And that's their mood. So if you have that kind of relationship with someone that's in a superior position, you're not their superior clearly, and they accept you in that way. And sometimes if someone's in an inferior, some subordinate position, you don't instruct them anyways because it's too sensitive. So sometimes you just hear from them rather than instruct them. And if you hear from them with openness and non-judgmentalness, something happens. Their heart softens, and then they can become, some shift in their heart, so that the door may be open for you to say something. It's subtle. It's back to Hercule that if you don't have the intelligence, but like my mother said, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. So, but say something nice can mean correcting. That's saying something nice. But then it has to have the right kind of relationship. Or you can go to someone who is the superior to that person because you're the subordinate to that person. And it seems to me that such and such. And I may not be seeing correctly, but if you think it's appropriate, then you can speak to this person who's my superior, but to you they're subordinate. I mean, that's another option. So be careful. Avoid making it your business to be the corrector of others' wrong. Make it your business to be the corrector of what's inside. That's primary. Bhaktisiddhanta's teaching. Once upon a time, I was a new devotee, over 50 years ago. And I had a liking for Bhaktisiddhanta. There's some history of how that happened. So one time I was in the Boston temple, because that's where I started. And Guru Das came to visit the Boston temple. And he was carrying a bunch of books. And I like books. So I asked him, can I see your book? There weren't, ISKCON books. There were other books. He said, sure. So at the very top was a book by Bhaktisiddhanta. And I was like, wow, Bhaktisiddhanta Ki Jai. So I just opened it up. I didn't read the book. I just opened up the book. And in the preface, just big letters in the center of the page, Bhaktisiddhanta's little saying that said, it's still with me, do not find fault in others, for by so doing, you are revealing the fact that your own heart is honeycombed with the very same fault. Meaning, if your heart was pure, you wouldn't be finding fault. No, different than finding fault and giving some encouragement to someone to grow. But fault finding is, So then the second sentence, it was really short. Then the second sentence is, our main business is to make our heart fit to offer to Krishna in loving service. Like it, that was okay. Close the book. Let that go inside. So there are circumstances when it's appropriate. In Naperville, we had this discussion on this topic without the details. There are circumstances. There's sometimes saying nothing is not appropriate. Saying something is appropriate. But how to say something in the right way, which is what your question is.
Thank you.
It's not easy. It can work the other way. You can do something that's intended as a compliment and an act of kindness for another person. They take it the opposite. It happens. You had it happen? I've had it happen. So, speech is important. Regulating and guiding speech with proper intelligence is an important part of life. Where do you get intelligence from? Super Soul and Shastra. I like the question. That's why I'm spending so much time on the question.
Thank you.
It's a good question. There was some lady's hand in the back. I think we'll take this as our last question.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class. It was very relevant also to a lot of confusion that happens in my mind personally. Maharaj, my question was on the lines, I understand and appreciate that respect is very critical and is probably the founding value or virtue we should develop as devotees. I understand within the devotee circle is probably even easier to exercise that because, we are all like-minded people. We all are trying to grow in a certain direction.
I'm waiting for the but.
Yes. My question is, how do I navigate when I am outside, in outside circles where I'm associating with non-devotees or in corporate cultures? Because whenever you exhibit virtues of humility or
It's
respect,
taken as weakness and people exploit.
yes.
This question, phrased very sweetly, is one of the top 10 questions I'm asked as a sannyasi traveling. You're not just on the topic of humility or in respect, but, Vaishnava character and then outside the association of Vaishnavas. It's a different world, different rules. I had this 3-part answer. 1, never depart from respect, never depart from humility, never depart from service. They're fundamental characters of a Vaishnava, of a soul, and live who you are. Then, next part, 2. Supposing they don't respect it, and supposing they take advantage or something. They criticize or they exploit or, something. That's their problem, not your problem. Don't make others' problems your problem. Your mission in life is you live with devotees and you associate with those that are not devotees. Try to act in a mood of service. This is part 2. Try to act in the mood of service in such a way that their consciousness becomes elevated. It can take different shapes and different forms. It can include, like, the nard and the cobra. Show your hoods. But, not just as a reflex. They're nasty. You just show your hood. It's not like that. With intelligence, what's appropriate to help this person become elevated? I may not have the answer to that question, but if I have that question, then I'm protected. Bhakti will protect me. Bhakti Devi will protect me. Krishna, through the form of Bhakti Devi, will protect me. So they can't hurt me. There's this similar, different but similar. There's a statement by Mother Teresa. Very simple. It's something like, if you know who you are, pause, then whether neither fame nor infamy can touch you. Say it negative. If you don't know who you are, fame and infamy make everything. It's an act of kindness or an act of hurt. It's everything. And if I know who I am, nothing can touch you. So your focus, you do your sadhana very nicely, associate with devotees nicely, and then you go outside of that safety circle, and you're protected because you know who you are. Your mission in life is to please Krishna. So in whatever the situation is, you evaluate, because that's who you are. Krishna is to be pleased. What's going to please Krishna in this circumstance, is that circumstance, and the other circumstance. And there's strength. And when you're strong, the persons that want to exploit you will recognize that you're strong. They can't hurt you. They can't touch you. They think they can, but they can't. I'll end with this. Recently, somebody sent me this well-known statement that forgetting his name, from South Africa, that was put in prison for 27 years. Nelson Mandela. You know his name, right? As I'm walking out of the cell into my world of freedom, if I hold on to the hurt and injustice that was done to me, I'm still in jail. It's another way of saying what Mother, know yourself. And don't hold on to the abusive people are going to be abusive, because in the world of duality, there's everything. And some people aren't abusive. Some people are abusive. Some people are just neutral. Some people are too busy with their own stuff that they don't have time to be hurtful. And some people are hurtful because they've been hurt, and the victim now becomes the perpetrator. Here's the last one. Some time ago, without the details because of time, a teenager told me that their math teacher was really cruel, and they felt really hurt. Something. They went on a yatra, to Haridwar and Rishikesh and Badrinath, and they had permission from the school. When they came back, the math teacher of all people was nasty, targeted at her, and said, yes, you can do the makeup homework, and yes, you can take the exams, and I'm going to fail you. And she's a competitive young girl, and she's superlative, but she was really hurt. Like, how do I deal with this? So I went through the whole thing. In the end, it was do an act of kindness, even you've been hurt by this hurtful person. Not saying the behavior is not hurtful. Who knows how much damage has happened to that person? They would behave like that. Who knows? You don't know. I don't know. But there's some hurt inside to behave like that. So forgive them. And more than forgive them, sometime before the semester ends, make some oatmeal cookies or brownies or something and make a gift to your teacher with a big smile. And they can like trash them or, they can do whatever they want to do. That's them. That's not but you show kindness to people who are hurtful. And chances are their heart will melt. And even if the behavior doesn't show, they'll feel it. So that's my advice. Be consistent with who you are. What the values that you believe in, you want to live your life by, and hold to them. And then you start making choices of how to deal with this and that and the other thing from that same place. Let me be an agent for elevate consciousness in a world that's that's a very damaged world. Many people, bad examples, bad character, Kali Yuga. That's it. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.